David Prever's Breakfast Club here. As a mum or dad, as a parent, you expect your kids to be safe, don't you, at university? You want them to know that they're going to be protected, looked after, as they would have been at school for all those years. But there is no general statutory duty of care in higher education. A petition that may reach 100,000 signatures today is asking for the government to consider this in Parliament. Our reporter Claire Starr spoke to Georgina Calvert-Lee, who's a senior consultant barrister, about this legal term. What does it mean, duty of care?
So what would a legal duty of care in terms of universities actually mean?
Well, universities do owe some duties of care already. So a simple example would be a university owes a duty not to have a defective staircase on its premises, which might cause people to fall down and break their leg. And that sort of damage would be reasonably foreseeable. And if a university knew it had a defective staircase, then it would be liable for the injuries caused. The kind of duty of care being called for here is one which would encompass providing a broader range of safe aspects to the university experience, so as to protect students if they are at reasonably foreseeable risk of mental health injury.
Why do you think we need this?
The campaign is calling for the same duty of care that employers owe to their employees. In this day and age, in our culture, we expect to have a sort of minimally safe work environment or educational environment in order to carry out our education or our work. And it seems very odd that employers should owe a duty to provide a safe workplace for their employees, while a university is not under a similar duty to provide a safe educational space for their students.
It's complex stuff, this, but there's an Abingdon-based university lecturer working across the south who's backing this campaign by bereaved parents. Dr. Mark Shanahan joins me now. Good morning to you, Mark. Thank you for coming on so early.
My pleasure. Good morning, David.
Tell me about your son. Tell me about Rory.
Yeah. So we lost my son, Rory, 5 years ago. Rory had gone to university in Yorkshire. He was studying engineering. The first 2 years went fine. But then he had a break from his studies. He was something of a perfectionist, also a procrastinator, which is a bad combination when you're getting into your final semester. And he took a break in 2017. He came back to us down here. He got some help. And then in 2018, he was set to restart his studies. He went back into university on the 1st of February 2018. And on the 20th of February, I was working at the university I was at the time, and I got a knock on the door, and it was the police to tell me that my son was dead and had taken his own life. And the big problem that Rory had was he absolutely could not face failing. He was really worried about it, but he piled up lots and lots and lots of work to do in that final semester. And as we found out afterwards, he just didn't get the support from the university for that transition back into study. And this is the kind of area that we're looking at with the statutory legal duty of care petition, which I am now very glad to say has gone past 100,000 signatures, to ensure that other families don't have the kind of utter devastation that hit my family back in February 2018, but also that universities are better prepared with greater clarity, consistency, and accountability to deal with issues of mental health, which we know are becoming an increasing challenge for students.
I can't begin to imagine what you must have been going through, Mark. I'm so sorry for your loss. And just listening to you speak there so coherently and able to try and logically understand something which for most parents, for all parents, is completely illogical and the greatest fear of all. And yet what you were talking about, those symptoms, if you like, the things that your son was going through, will be familiar for many parents, those pressures that children face now at all ages.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, hindsight is a wonderful and terrible thing at the same time. If I knew then what I knew now, maybe the situation would be different. But yes, I mean, for anybody whose son or daughter is looking to go to university this autumn coming, or if they have children at university now, these are young adults, but they are just taking their first steps towards independent living. And there is a lot of pressure on students, particularly this generation that we have now, who have had several years of teaching lost to COVID, where it wasn't the same kind of growing and developing experience that maybe we had in decades earlier. So they're coming to university perhaps not quite as resilient as they were. And everybody expects, and universities do a very good selling job on all of the support mechanisms that will be around for them. And to be honest, in most universities, and I've worked in a few universities, they are very good, but they're not necessarily joined up. And because there isn't a statutory duty of care, there really isn't accountability on behalf of the universities if anything goes wrong. They will do their best, but through this campaign, through the Learn Network and through For the Hundreds, the people who've really helped us on this campaign, we believe that universities could do better.
You're looking to have this debated in Parliament. Of course, if you get enough signatures, is legislation needed, or do universities need to act before that happens to try and put something in place?
Sure. Without legislation, universities have got wiggle room. They can opt out of things. The onus is on them to act voluntarily. Only about half of all universities are actually signed up to the Universities UK very good best practice guidelines. We want all of them there, and legislation would lead to that. It will take a while. We are at base camp at the moment, and we still have a mountain to climb here, but there are some very good people involved. Georgina, as you heard from a little earlier on, we have quite a few MPs on this. Layla Moran has been supporting and helping us and pushing for more MPs to understand this situation and be involved in seeing how making this a legal requirement of universities will really push it and make things better for students. What gets measured gets done. I
don't expect you to give me personal details, but of course, but as you go about your own work as a lecturer, have your attitudes towards students changed? Is your antenna up all the time looking out for possible problems, I wonder?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been head of a department. I'm a personal tutor, a senior personal tutor. I look at things very differently now. I've done mental health awareness courses. I'm a mental health first aider. I've done Student Minds is Look After Your Mates course. I think all of my colleagues should be doing this kind of course. We're not clinicians. We're not counsellors. We can't sort all of the problems, but we can spot them when that student goes quiet or when they're too noisy or when they've disappeared for a little while. And if we can get in and get those interventions early, we can stop the kind of awful situation that happened to Rory back in 2018.
All the best. Thank you very much for coming on, Mark, and thank you for sharing all of your awful experiences this morning and some of the positive things you're trying to do as well. The best to your family. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mark Shanahan, Abingdon-based university lecturer, talking about his campaign on behalf of bereaved parents. We asked the Department of Education for a comment on all of this, and they said, every student death is a tragedy. We expect all universities to take active steps to prevent suicide and meet their legal duties in respect of safety and welfare. And we're working closely with charities in the sector to promote and fund effective mental health support, including Student Space, a free online service, and improved partnerships with the NHS. We also spoke to Universities UK. They represent 140 universities, and they said that universities prioritise the mental health and staff of students with inclusive learning environments and support for those experiencing difficulties, and working closely with NHS services. That campaign from Mark and his colleagues continues. We'll have more of this coming up in the next hour about universities' duty of care.